Thank you, and I welcome both our learned speakers, for the session today on behalf of IMC Indian Merchant Chambers, Navi Mumbai Expert Committee, and let me, a lot of participants here have been continuously joining session by session with us in this journey of 7 session series. And let me, give a brief background. I think Shweta has already given it till now.
No,
But,
no, please continue. I have not.
Yeah,
Actually, I have not.
yeah. So on 12th of January, we had initiated this wonderful, series of entrepreneurship and making with a vision to make Navi Mumbai as an entrepreneurship hub. And after the main 12th session, wherein we had more than 160 participation, we had a person, representative, the project director of Niti Aayog joining us from Delhi virtually, and through that overall session, it was really interactive, wherein lot of ideas have been thrown up, and after which we decided that it's important to nurture the entire ecosystem for the startups and the SMEs, MSMEs in Navi Mumbai, and that's where this series of 7 sessions on different aspects of businesses was launched. And I'm really happy, lot of you have continuously been attending session by session, and I'm sure these insights, what all our mentors till today have given, will add value in your business, in your startup journey, helping you and identifying which are the areas which needs utmost importance from you as a business entrepreneur and the startup entrepreneur. So with this, I welcome everyone on behalf of IMC, and I hand over back to Shweta for the session ahead, and welcome to both our learned speakers for the day. Thank you. Yeah, Shweta, you're on mute.
Thanks, Divya.
Yes. So this is Shweta Padma. I am a expert committee member, Navi Mumbai committee member, and also the founder of Business Leadership League. You have been meeting me here. Hopefully all of you are getting the best out of these sessions, logging in, watching on these videos online. This is being sent to you, the recordings, the presentations. And so just, refer to it, make the best out of it along with your teams. So I will formally, Divya, I will formally introduce Mr. Harmit Chawla and Mr. Kaustubh Khorde. Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes, I'll do that. So let's discuss both our wonderful, just a minute. Give me a minute, all of you. Just a minute, everybody. Okay, so I request all our participants to go on mute. Please use the chat window whenever you want to interact with us. You want to come into the discussion, you have a specific query to us, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself and begin. But when our speakers are, both the experts are talking, I would request all of you to go on. Okay. So first, talking about our first expert for the day, Mr. Harmit Chawla. Mr. Chawla, you have to talk about the firm, because I am still not clear about the name of your current firm. But let me talk about your expertise and all that you are bringing. And it is so gracious of you to agree to do this with all of us and enlighten us in this field, HR. So, he has more than 25 years of experience in manufacturing, and then a lot of other professional services companies later. He specializes in delivering on business financial plans through strategic business priorities. So when you are working on these strategies, so aligning the people, organization practices and processes, that is his expertise. He has worked on HR transformation. He has used technologies and streamlining employee life cycle management in business transformation, operational excellence through Six Sigma, and a lot of in this field, a lot of things. When he speaks, obviously he'll talk more about this profile, so I'll keep it short. And currently, so what is that, what is the organization that you are heading? If you could just elaborate on that, and you are on mute, so please unmute yourself, and then I will go to Mr. Kaustubh Khorde. So a little bit of just a little bit of brief about yourself, maybe highlights which I have missed.
Yeah, sure, Shweta. So thank you so much. I'll just summarize probably in one word. I've been helping organizations, particularly the MSMEs and the family managed businesses, with two areas. One, help them get maybe more process oriented, because in the process of scaling up, there is a need or there is a time when they need to put their process frameworks, etc. in place. And likewise, when it comes to aligning the people to the business strategy or enabling the right business outcomes by utilizing the efforts of the people. So that's the other specialization that I have. And as I said, I have been working with MSMEs as well as the family managed businesses essentially to help them with that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, sir. And then let's come to our second expert, Mr. Kaustubh Khorde, who is the co-founder of Flywheel Management Services. It's a boutique advisory services firm with focus on people, process and technology, and has been an industry leader since the last 30 years, with almost 30 years of experience. So, you know, obviously, again, he has a lot of associations, organizations, and platforms that he has been keenly associated with. So, but his rich expertise includes establishing and growing diverse greenfield businesses as an entrepreneur, corporate and business strategy, assessing and training hundreds of organizations across the world on various management systems, turnaround in manufacturing operations and managing acquisitions. So anything that you would want to add, Mr. Kaustubh Khorde, and then we can begin the session.
No, Shweta, thank you for having me. And I think there was already a lot said, so very gracious of you, and thank you very much. Maybe when we start the session, maybe I'll talk.
Yes. And so we have Nitin Bhapkar from IMC office. He is sharing his details in the chat window. Please, he's your contact point. Write to him in case you're facing any difficulties, you're not connected, you're not getting the invite, and for all your membership queries, do contact Nitin. And let's begin the session today, where we are going to focus on the most important aspect that will differentiate our businesses in 21st century post-COVID era, when a lot of new realities have emerged, our people. How do we look at our people? How we need to look at them in the future, and how they can really drive our success going forward is a very big issue. There are a lot of, it's a very, very complex issue. But I still have to say, you know, I am slightly disappointed with the number of participants who had come. I don't know why all of us as business owners feels that HR hamara topic nahi hai. This is not for us. This is not where we should focus. Trust me. I'm sure after this discussion, most of us will think differently. I'm sure both our experts will make that happen. Over to you, sir. So the format is each of you can take 15 minutes, give a perspective on this, and then we'll take up questions from the audience, from all the participants, and then we'll touch on any other key issues that you want to take up. So 15 minutes each, half an hour, and then post that we'll take up all the questions. So participants can all interact with us, and let's all get with our full energy into the session. So who would like to start first? I leave it to our experts.
My senior members,
Harmeet to start.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes.
Okay, looks like the die is already cast in my favor. Huh?
Yes.
All right. As is mandatory in any of these sessions, I'll bring up a few slides. But again, bringing up the slides doesn't mean that we would not have interaction. Though we have just about 15 minutes allocated to us, I have some poll questions on all, which maybe we would make use of the chat window on Zoom for you to just respond. It's going to be pretty easy for you to just say a yes or a no, whatever it is. We'll just go with the flow as the slides come along. Nitin, you need to confirm if you can see my slides.
Yes, we can. Please continue. We can.
All right. Once again, thank you, IMC, for getting me into the forum. And my special thanks to Divya. I think she is the one who's gotten us into the forum. So thanks once again. And I hope we bring some value and do justice to the time that we're going to be spending together this afternoon. I'm fond of stories, so maybe I'll share this one story to set the context of our discussion today. Again, quickly, if you can unmute yourself and let me know what you see in this picture. Are you familiar with this marvel that probably is connecting one of the cities very close to Bombay? Have you been on this expressway anytime?
Yes. Any participants can come in. Please unmute and speak. Yes. So Archana writes yes.
Anybody can just,
Yeah, this is Bombay Pune Highway, Expressway.
you're right, absolutely. You're right, absolutely. Bang on. I wish I had some means to uh, reward you or gift you for the right answers, but yeah, we'll have to live without it for today. All right, I've been
Yeah.
on this expressway for some time, for on many occasions rather. And what really has caught my attention every time I've gone on this highway or expressway is the fact that, you know, when you are traveling in the daytime, the scenario or whatever you see, the scenic beauty around is enormous, particularly in the monsoon season, as we all know. So daytime is good, but when it comes to the night time, and I just wanted to relate one of my experiences that I came across. So we were actually trailing a truck in the night time, and what I realized was while the truck for the truck the headlight was working fine, but as far as the tail light of the truck is concerned, that wasn't working. And that set me thinking. And this was not only just one truck. As we drove through that highway for quite some time now, we realized there were several such trucks where the headlight was working in fine condition, but the tail light wasn't working. Now, the point is maybe somewhere the owner or the driver, they felt that perhaps just having the headlight is enough. And perhaps they were in a cost saving mode where they felt the tail light probably is adding to their cost and is of no use. But the fact of the matter is, while it's good to have the headlight for these trucks, somewhere they are not only jeopardizing their own safety by not having the tail light, but also showing disrespect to the people who are trailing them, because that could cause a huge mishap for the people who are driving behind them. Um, and so what's the lesson over here for us? The lesson over here is typically in organizations, we have situations where, you know, as leaders, we are more focused on the headlights. We are just focused on managing upwards or managing what probably is our own priority without ever realizing that there are a lot of people who are dependent on our decisions. There are a lot of people who need our attention, people who sort of fall back upon us as leaders to help them with the right career path, with the right growth, with the right direction, so on and so forth. So it becomes extremely critical for any leader. Now, since we are addressing the business owners and the promoters, etc., as a part of our forum today, and Shweta, somewhere you already mentioned that the mindset for the owners essentially to feel that, you know, people at the end of the day, they are more as commodity. We could get them and sort of deploy the services at any point in time without probably the need for us to really align ourselves or making an effort to align them as a part of the overall vision that we as owners have. I think that's extremely important. So I thought I'll just set this context with this story and move forward. Now brings me to the next slide, which is incidentally the first poll question for you. So as I said, in our lives as well, the question to you is, do we behave like those truck drivers? We fix our own headlights and forget to check if our tail lamps are functioning. And again, I urge all of you to wear the hat of a business leader or owner and then answer this particular question. So you can just type in a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, as the case may be. And maybe Shweta, I would rely on you to just feed me with the answers.
Yes, definitely. A 5 from me, a 4 from Shetvi. Shetty, VI, or not getting. I would request all our participants, it is so wonderful if you can name your devices properly, telling us you are the founder, MD, CEO of which company, or yes, Govind Gupta says how to recruit people who will, okay, we'll take up these questions. But now Vimal Savansukha 5, a lot of people are saying 5, okay, wonderful. Mr. Sashi Kumar says 5, so a lot of 5s.
Okay. That's good. Okay, that helps me. Thank you so much for that. Good. Yeah, it's important. It's important that we are just not focused onward, but also focused on what's happening behind us. How are we responsible for the people who lean on us for everything when we lead an organization? So it's extremely important to be a good headlight, a focus as far as the headlight bit is concerned, but at the same time be focused on the tail lamps as well. So as I said, good leaders have great headlights and excellent tail lamps too. The next quick question to you is, in the current turbulent market condition, which has already made it hard for the business owners to determine what should be their organizational strategy to navigate through the uncertain and ambiguous future. So from your perspective, again, what do you think it is? Do you agree with this, that the current market turbulent conditions are turbulent, they are tough for you to navigate through the current scenario? Where does your heart lie? Where does your head lie?
Okay. So can we have your responses for this? Okay, 5. So we have 5, 4. Yes, a lot of 5 and 4.
Okay. I hope everybody is reading the alternatives correctly. So looks like everybody disagrees,
Yes,
which I
yes.
think is a good sign.
That's a good sign. So we have an optimistic crowd here today.
Absolutely. Fabulous. Fabulous. I love this. Great.
It's a new opportunity. So Mark Savio Fernandez says it's a new opportunity.
Absolutely.
That's why a 5.
Great.
Wonderful.
Great. All right. Okay. Now this is a $1 billion question. Actually, something which we wanted to have as a part of front and center of our discussion today. So as business owners again, and with all the market turbulent conditions that we are speaking about, do you feel the people in your organization who incidentally are also the ones who are undergoing a lot of these changes that we are speaking about in the last about a couple of months? So apart from the organizations, the people, do you think they are the only ones who are constantly responsible for bringing in disruptions, bringing in results, executing results, and shaping up the new sort of vision or the realities in your organization? Do you think they are the ones you need to rely upon for enabling the results for your businesses? That's a question for you.
Yes. Okay. I think we are done with this. So we have one from somebody 4. Please respond to the current question. So yes or no? A yes from me. Maybe Mr. Chavla, I think they're still responding to the earlier question. So, achha, this is the new question that people. Okay, they are responding to this.
This would actually help me understand where does the head of the audience lie? Do they think it's single-handedly only the business owner who's responsible for the results, or they think people are equally responsible in their organizations to help them create these results? That's what
So
this.
we have 2, 3, and then a lot of 4s and 5. But we have 2 and 3 also.
Okay. All right.
Yes, we have a lot of
Great.
people
So
voted 2.
again, yeah. So I'm going with the assumption that it's a mixed bag where people feel at times, our audience rather feels that people may be responsible, people may not be responsible. Is that right, Shweta?
Yes,
All right.
yes, yes, yes. Because a lot of 2 coming in from the audience, a lot of 4s and 5s, but a lot of 2s also.
Which is fair. Not a problem at all. All right. Now that I know where does the head and heart lie of the audience, I would probably start talking about some of the typical issues that organizations face as they ramp up, as they start growing. And I'm again going with the assumption that the audience comprises of people who are already successfully running their companies, but audience also comprises of some startups, etc. So it's
Yes.
to
Yes.
our set of audience put together.
So just a minute, Mr. Govind Gupta, is there a specific question that you want to come in now? I see you raising your hand, or we can wait, because anyways, we will be bringing in all the participants. We know that all of us have a lot of questions and we are seeking guidance from both the experts today. So I think, can we do that? Yes, okay. Okay.
This is,
Yes.
we can take it up later also. Or my question was just to understand from Mr. Harmeet Chawla
Okay.
as to how do we recruit people who will be a fit to the organization.
Okay, wonderful. So that, Mr. Chawla, you can, continue with the presentation. That's a question that may get answered in the due course, or you can do it after your presentation is over.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's fine.
All right,
Thank
sure.
you.
All right. So something which is not a secret, the first bullet that you see on this particular slide, for all of you who are, as I said, already in the growth phase, or maybe in a phase where you've just got started your company. As owners and promoters, the first obsession that all of us would have is with growth. And there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. Everybody wants more clients, everybody wants more customers. And there is also a lot of stress, and there is also a lot of due diligence that is required in terms of how do you manage your working capital. So that's where most of your energy would be spent, as probably you start growing, or even in a stage where you are successfully running an organization. This is an ongoing sort of endeavor or effort that most of you as business owners would have. But what happens typically for organizations is that, you know, like any big corporate, most of the people are always busy firefighting. Obviously, for the startups, there's always an endeavor to make your first customers pay. You're chasing your couple of first customers that you're signing up. As I said, there's always a pressure on your financials. There is a need for you to firm up your sales order. And in that process, what happens is now something which Mr. Govind already brought up. You as an owner would not get the opportunity to hire people who actually are aligned to your own vision. You may not really have the time. And what happens is, perhaps maybe the first few hires that you do in your organization, you spend time for that exercise. But subsequently, as you start growing, you somewhere feel the need to delegate that responsibility. And that's where I think the slippage starts happening, because you start hiring people left, right, and center who may not really be aligned with your overall business strategy and the vision, right? So typically this is a problem that we see in most organizations. The other part is, as business owners, again, since you are firefighting most of the time and sort of busy managing the present, at times it may so happen that although you need to look into the future, understand how exactly is your sort of set of customers shaping up as far as your service or delivery to them or product to them is concerned. Since you're so caught up with your present, you may not really find the necessary time to be able to look into the future and start working towards the future, right? So the next part is, again, organizations, typically what happens is a couple of owners or co-owners or co-founders, it's imperative for them to also build a tribe, people who are as passionate as them, people who are as excited about this journey as the owners and the promoters. But in the absence of any operating model, if I may put it that way, or in the absence of any framework that is available in the organizations, at times it does not get translated into the next set of people within the organization, right? So that's what I refer to as not being able to translate your own vision into a common language or a common goal, which is spread across everybody in the organization, because you don't have a framework in place. You don't have a proper process, etc., to manage as you start adding to your people to your organization. And that's the next bullet again, the right rigor, the discipline, the process, and the structure is missing as you scale up. And the last part is, which is extremely important again for the business owners. It's important that, you know, we have all the necessary elements in place in the organization to be able to adapt to the changes. And what better example than the last few months, where the organizations had set out to do something. And there are several of them. I'm not saying you are probably one of them, but somewhere along they realized the customers that they were catering to completely came to a grinding halt, because the kind of service delivery or whatever products they were creating were not required anymore, right? Or the means to be able to bring those services and products to the customers in the pandemic times, there was no means for them to do that. So did these companies have the necessary adaptability? Were they agile enough to quickly change their products and services? Did they have the right kind of people in the organization? Did they have the right kind of visibility to the skill set available in the organization to be able to do that? Some organizations which had this capability managed to not only survive but thrive in these times, because they quickly changed their direction, adjusted their sales according to the requirement of the environment, and had the right people in the organization to sail along and as I said, thrive. But some who didn't have this available obviously had a good amount of struggle. So that's what I refer to as adaptation, or the need for organization to create adaptability in the organization. And the next part is for owners, perpetuity becomes extremely important. So is it about just running this show, this business for your generation, or the second generation, or the third or the fourth generation? So each time you pass the baton from one generation to the other generation, do you have the right framework? Do you have the right construct within the organization? Do you have the right people in the organization? And when I say people, I'm referring to maybe some professionals who you want to hire as a part of your journey. So I think all of this becomes extremely important. And that's where I think people priority becomes extremely sort of top of the mind for owners. Now, for whatever reasons, for business owners, I think for the day-to-day struggle, maybe some part of this people management may not be a part of their priority. But the fact of the matter remains that one of the top spends as far as their P&L is concerned goes around paying for the salary, for the incentives and the bonuses, etc. of their employees. So it becomes all the more important that you hire the right people. That's important. And of course, as you hire, you need to also be aligned in terms of being able to give the right growth path to the people, being able to identify the right skill sets in the people, being able to have the capability of picking up people from one location and deploying that person onto some other location, depending on the skill set requirement. So all of this becomes possible only when you have a framework, a set of standard HRs, framework, processes, maybe enable technology, which again is very important for you to be able to create the right experiences and a uniform standardized experiences for your people across locations and across the hierarchy in the organization put together. So I think that's where I just wanted to sensitize something which you already know. But given that we have an opportunity to speak to a diverse set of industries and of different shapes and sizes, but what we realized over a period of time is for perpetuity, as I said, that's a very key word over here. It's important that you start adapting, you start working on firm HR practices. Maybe you, depending on again the shape and size that you have, you may want to hire somebody in particular who can take care of all of these activities. And while you graduate into more strategic role rather than being involved with tactical stuff on a day-to-day basis, because that eats away a lot of your time. Practically everything comes on your table for decision making. So if you have the right set of people enabled in your organization, it becomes a more streamlined affair for your organization to manage this. I'll just summarize by using this particular slide in terms of how does the future look like for organizations, and it could be any organization. I'm not just referring to the family managed businesses or the MSMEs or the startups or whatever, right? So the need of the hour, given the speed, the breakneck speed at which the business context is changing, the market is changing, the customer needs are changing, the sort of disruptions and the breakthroughs that are happening all around us. It's imperative that organizations start bringing agility in their organization. How fast or how soon can they respond to the customer requirements, and how that is only possible if they have the right set of people and the right set of skill sets that gives them that competitive advantage to be able to do that quickly, right? And also with some amount of technology coming in, are organizations making conscious attempt of understanding what part of the work can be done using technology, what part of the work still needs human intervention, because not everything can be delegated to the machines, as we all know. So are you creating those roles in the organization? Are you getting the right skills in the organization to be able to use technology at the right place? And again, as I said, mixing it up with the right skill sets from a people perspective, and also enabling something called a consumer grade experience for your users, because they're so used to the Amazons and the Flipkarts and the Olas kind of applications that they all use the similar experience in our work environment as well. So again, different organizations are in a different stage and a different journey, but are you consciously creating consumer grade experience for your employees as well? Because sooner than later, you would still be required to do this as well for your people. I'll take a pause here, Shweta. I had an example on Chitle Bandhu. Depending on the time, I would bring this example, but I would want my colleague Kaustubh also to share his ideas.
Yes, I think Mr. Chavla, when people will ask questions, maybe answering a lot of the questions, you give the example of Chitle Bandhu and answer a lot of things. So we would go to our next expert, Mr.
Sure.
Kaustubh Khorde, please. Yes, sir. Over to you.
Yeah. Right. So thank you once again, IMC, and also I think the co-partners, which is SIBA and DY Patil School of Management. I think the way I'm going to approach this and my discussion with all of you is going to be more as business leaders. It's not going to be typically, I would not like to preach to anyone here. All of you are running successful businesses and you have thrived and survived through the pandemic. So I will share my thoughts, my experience, and try and bring a leadership or owner's perspective in terms of what is the way forward, where we are, what are the new concepts around human capital, and what can we do? How can we deploy maybe technology? Because I think that was one of the areas that that was an input. Yeah. Okay. So VUCA, and I think it's something that all of us know, but maybe somebody can put in the chat box. What does VUCA stand for? But I can't read the comment. So has anybody responded? Hello?
You're on mute.
Okay, sorry. I said, no, I don't see any responses in the chat window. I request anybody who wants to, answer this question. We'll send you virtual cookies, don't worry. So, we have virtual cookies for all of you. So if you want to answer this, please go ahead and answer.
Okay. So in the absence of the fact that I can't see this, I will expand that. So it's volatility.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, volatility, I think uncertainty.
Yes.
Complexity is, it's a model, yes.
It's ambiguity.
Ambiguity, right.
Yeah.
Is for that. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think we are living very much in a VUCA world, and this has been amply amplified and exemplified in the last 1 year. So this term was actually coined after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and it's been used by managements throughout the world to navigate through uncertain times. But right now, if you try and look at the mega trends, whatever we do, we have to work around this as a background. And all these mega trends basically are the background against which all of us have to run our businesses. Organizational resilience and agility. And this is also something which has really come up in the last 1 year. This talks about your ability as an organization to quickly adapt and survive and take care of your people and continue to serve your customers. And that's what really is what every organization is looking for today. Because we still have a lot of uncertainty around how things will pan out. How long will the pandemic pan out? And yet we need to run our businesses profitably so that we can take care of our businesses and we can take care of our people. The other background is climate change and sustainable sourcing. I don't know if we have anybody here from the textile industry, anybody from the food industry. I mean, all of us, I don't think I need to elaborate on the background around climate change and its impact. All of us are witness to it. But we already see that this is impacting business very clearly. So as I was mentioning here in the textile sector, there are a lot of social and ESG goals and certifications that you need to fulfill if you want to supply to the global players. Similarly, if you are, let's say, supplying to a Cadbury somewhere in the world, or which is now Mondelez, then if they are sourcing cocoa from you, then they will look for certain certifications around sustainable farming. Sustainability is another mega trend that we need to fulfill going ahead. Similarly, the digital imperative, and I think the very fact that all of us are successfully meeting today emphasizes the need to have digital solutions around everything that we do. And industry 4.0 obviously is around the whole Internet of Things. So today we have connected cars, we have connected devices, and this trend will only continue to accelerate. And we have the new global economic and geopolitical order post-pandemic. And why have I put this up here? In our country, I think we are very fortunate that India has been able to come out of the pandemic so far, touch wood, better than most countries in the world. I think the great part about what has happened is it has allowed all of us, our government, our country, to look inward and try and look at opportunities for us. So these are not just mere slogans, but there are people who are taking advantage of it. So today, when we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat, when we talk about, and I think the vaccines scenario is the one that illustrates it better than anybody else. Today, India is the vaccine supplier to the world. It's not only for ourselves, we are supplying vaccines to the world. Similarly, we will see it happening in the pharma bulk drug industry, where most of the sourcing was happening from China. But now, Vocal for Local, with Atmanirbhar Bharat, the government is incentivizing this industry. Medical devices industry in India was in a very nascent stage. But now, right now, there are 4 medical devices parks which are being sanctioned. We have textile parks which have been spoken about in the budget, and all of this will come up. So these are not slogans. And I think these are the opportunities that as entrepreneurs, all of us need to consider. Make in India, zero defect, zero effect. And why I have mentioned this here is because I think as business leaders, right?
Mr. Kaustubh Kodde, can you just come in? You are referring to the presentation. Have you shared it? Because I am not seeing the presentation. So I was just wondering, yes. So Nitin, I don't know. Sir, are you sharing it? You want me or Nitin to share? Because you've been referring to it and I was constantly wondering since the last time that you've been speaking that why is it not visible to me? But you know, then I thought maybe there is...
Let me see.
Just, or else we will share it. You can just share the screen and I will confirm once it's visible.
Yeah.
Yes. You've started your screen share. Yes. Yeah. We can see it now.
Okay. So earlier to very quickly recap what I said. So these are the mega trends against which all of us are operating our businesses. This is where we are as a country right now. And this is where we also see a lot of business owners here today. And as was mentioned at the beginning by Shweta, maybe there are some startups as well. These are the enablers around which we need to run our businesses. And Mr. Harmeet spoke about the challenges of MSMEs, and I have put up some as well. Nonetheless, I think what all of us must acknowledge and appreciate is the fact that MSMEs also have certain very visible strengths.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier, a lot of you are here because we survived through the last 1 year. So I will use, maybe Mr. Harmeet will use, you'll hear a lot of agility, speed, adaptability, these kind of terms. And I think the Indian industry, the MSMEs have actually demonstrated that they can come up with this. Speed of decision making, you're not limited by silos, you're not limited by global structures. Speed of decision making is extremely fast in MSMEs. So we certainly see certain trends. At the same time, if we have to adapt ourselves to the new normal, then what are the challenges that we need to address? most of the MSMEs are closely held or family managed businesses with semi-professional management. We see a strong set of skills and know-how at the top, but it's limited by the number of leaders. Point that I want to make here is, in many cases, business owners, we spend a lot of our time and energy on operational issues. However, as business owners, it's important that we spend our time on strategic issues. Yeah, operations can be handled by a different set of people. So organizations need to plan to have the right set of skills and a second set of leaders. And we see this as a limitation. I still know of customers who would still closely hold the formulation to their chest and who sit down in the factory every day, and they're still deciding what should be the batch size. And I have seen this as a limitation for growth. I have seen this for large brands which are well established in the market, but they have not been able to reach to other markets. They have not been able to expand their product portfolio, whereas they have a good brand equity. So when we were consulting with them, our whole endeavor was to try and free up management time so that they could focus on expanding the business. So this is where you need to start looking at it from a competence and people perspective. Lack of professional HR support. We know that in most MSMEs, this is very closely managed by the top management or sometimes a trusted person who may not be a trained HR person. And again, this is where you're spending a lot of your time and effort trying to address every small issue that any employee faces or the organization faces. And in today's times, you have the gig economy, you have access to talent, you can hire part-time CFOs, CEOs, HR heads. So why not look at this as an option in changed circumstances? Manual systems leading to leakages and limitations. Again, another client where they were not even aware how many employees they exactly had because they were spread all over the country and remote locations. They were not sure whether a particular person is there on board or not, and they were continuing to pay salary. Yeah, so it's hard to believe, but this happens. Adequacy of systems and process management, and this is why on the previous slide I had zero defect, zero effect. So I think in the last 1.5 months, there have been a series of seminars by the Ministry of Commerce around Udyog Manthan. Yeah, so this is to improve the quality and productivity in different sectors of the industry. And this is where we need to step up what we are doing to address some of these challenges. Compliance management, again, another issue. Many small enterprises struggle to understand all the complexity of regulations, and then this becomes an issue. And again, your time, energy, money, everything is spent trying to douse that fire. Slower adaptation of technology. So it's not about whether you're using technology or not. You need to look at it from the perspective of what am I losing by not moving fast. Most of the organizations who have responded well, even the larger organizations, and I have been part of some of these seminars, are the ones who had already invested into technology. So they were able to adapt and move extremely quickly. So, and those who did not, they had to spend a lot of time and energy to try and catch up. At the same time, there's also the threat that your competitor may adapt technology very fast, and they will be able to move faster than you. So it's opportunity as well as a threat if you don't look at it properly. And obviously, if you're limited only by your own thinking, then you only have an inside-out view. But you're missing probably an independent pair of eyes. You're missing somebody who can advise you to future.
Yes.
So what are the emerging trends in human capital management? So we've been using SWOT, agility and resilience. So I think right now, the change-focused management is not just around efficiency, but you have to design your organizations, you have to design your supply chains, you have to design your reach to the market, your ability to deliver around consistently. So it's not just efficiency. So again, in fact, I spoke about one of these clients where they are involved in every batch. But of the strengths that I saw in that same organization was they were keeping an inventory of 3 months because they were sourcing from all over the world their raw material, and this is of a certain very specific quality and grown only in certain parts of the world. And thankfully, because of this approach, now typically maybe as management consultancy would have told them, why don't you try and reduce your inventory cost? But in this case, it helped them because they had this. So they were more resilient than just being efficient. And this is the change framework that you need to look at. Adapting to new realities, blended working, reskilling. compensation restructuring, deal economics. So we have all these options, and these are also challenges. And this is what all of us will need to adapt to. A lot of people at different levels were not comfortable using all these IT tools. So whether it was in the education sector or whether it was people like us, and we had to train ourselves to do this. However, going forward, we will need to look at much more adaptation, whether it is company policies or whether it is technology. We will need a lot of reskilling at every level. Something very important which has come up and which probably is going to be a way of life ahead, because everybody is talking about, for various reasons, for maybe flexibility, people are learning they can save costs. So a lot of organizations have already announced that they will continue to either have blended working or they will have partial staff who will permanently work from home. So the whole concept of work-life balance has shifted. Today, people are talking about a holistic approach of employee well-being, health, family health. These are now organizational concerns. You have to find solutions around it. You have to sometimes fund it. You have to change your compensation structure. You have to incentivize all of these issues. So these are the things that are coming up. When people are meeting all over the world virtually, you need to look at how to do it. So it's about more inclusive and consultative choices which will happen. So again, this is the change in terms of changing from typically work-life balance to a holistic approach around employee well-being. I already spoke about transition to digital processes, and since we are talking about the human capital aspect here, I will also further on demonstrate a little bit of what's possible, just as a teaser maybe. But a rapid transition to digital processes and HRM dashboard to analyze what you can do and what is the output you're getting and how you can leverage that for optimized business performance. Real-time performance management. Now, this is something which has changed. Today, with the advent of technology, you can not only have a PMS, which you will see in one of the screens that I'll show, but it can be a real-time. An employee can know today exactly what is my level of performance, what is the gap, how much am I ahead, what do I need to do, how do I compare with the previous month. All of this is possible in real-time. And these are the real changes that organization can implement and benefit from. Imagine if every employee knows any time, any hour, how he's performing against his set objectives. And I mean, it opens up a completely new dimension. And same thing, digital employee engagement and collaboration. So in the virtual world, again, and given the fact that there will be blended models, you also need to engage your employees, because this has created a lot of stress. Present situation, it's hard for people working at home and their families in the background and their children studying, yeah, and maybe their parents are requiring something. How do we do this? How do they don't feel isolated with the stress of working by themselves? So that's where today platforms are enabling much more engaging, let's say, systems and platforms, whereby you can customize, you can adapt, you can digitally engage, you can have gamification. So instead of physically meeting, you can have all these built into a much more engaging experience. And that's the way to go as far as technology goes. This, of course, also brings into play a lot of issues around data privacy. And I think this is something that will continue to strengthen. We are already seeing the reactions around big tech with what's happening with Facebook somewhere, what's happening with Google in some other part of the world. And data privacy will become extremely important in terms of whatever we do. And I think the important part is to now move beyond surviving, but to build all of this into one whole and move towards thriving. And I have a slide on that. So with all of this as leaders, what do we need to do? So we need to link our corporate strategy. We need to reevaluate our purpose and contribution to society, which is extremely important. Because organizations in the future will be evaluated not just by the business results, but they will be evaluated on ESG, environment, social and governance performance, your vision, your products and services. So I think this has been a great opportunity to revisit what you're doing and to reinvent yourself for the new normal, because it's accelerated everything that we needed to do. Maybe we planned, but we need to revisit what we did. Bring that, look into diversification, bring that down to your particular business, and look at what is the business strategy and how do you compete in the new normal and the changed rule of business today. You flow this down into because end of the day you still have to maintain the consistency and quality of our products and services, which is where management systems approaches and competency around that becomes extremely important for you to achieve any breakthrough results. This then flows into your digital strategy. And finally, since we are talking about people, your people strategy dovetails into all of this. Yeah. So you have to look at your organizational structure. You have to look at the way you're maybe structuring your different business lines. You need to look at what are your customers expecting today and what is the skill sets required to deliver that to customers. I mean, if I was a fashion designer, instead of investing in a high-end store, maybe somewhere in Juhu today, I would rather go online and invest and have an online store. The world can see, whatever I'm designing, and I would rather sell my products there. Yeah. So that's the way to go. So we need to completely reinvent what we need to do. But this means that not only do we need a change of mindset, we probably need a new set of skills at our end, which can be hired or which can be through, again, as I mentioned, through the gig economy, it can be hired on a consultative basis. And all of this obviously means that there's a whole change to the way we compensate people, the way we work with people, your performance management system. All of this would need to be upgraded to be. While doing all of this, let's also try and understand that most of us, especially in family managed businesses, tend to really have a very strong command and control kind of situation. Yeah, so that's been the leadership model, and it succeeded. Nothing wrong with it. It's worked well for organizations. Yeah. So whenever we are talking about change, it doesn't mean that everything that we were doing in the past was wrong. The only thing is, how do we move forward from there and build on what we have already created, or maybe in some cases, the generation prior to us has created for us. So if you look at the Y matrix, where you have support and consultation, and the right is challenge. So evolving models, instead of command and control, are more consultative. But at the same time, it's not just about having a very open democratic process. You also need to drive your business results. So that's where the challenge side comes in. So can you see my arrow moving?
Yes.
Okay. So if your style is where you are infrequently demonstrating support and consultation, and you also don't challenge your team, then you're putting yourself in an apathy zone as a leader, and that's how your team is going to respond to you and your needs as an organization. Okay. On the other hand, if you are frequently challenging people to meet business results without providing support and consultation, that's where anxiety comes in, and that's where attrition rates go up.
Very interesting. This.
Yeah, it's a very interesting research point.
It's a very interesting.
Yeah. Likewise, if you frequently demonstrate support and consultation, but if you don't challenge your team, they will happily be where they are. They will be in their comfort zone, but maybe your business results are not in the comfort zone anymore. Yeah. So gradually you need to transition into a situation where employees are part of everything that you do. You support them, you consult them, but you also challenge them. You empower them, you educate them, you train them, but it becomes a continuous learning zone, and they are part of your journey. And this is the best quadrant to be. That's the way forward. So as we said, the whole idea is now all of us have struggled to survive. So now it's from survive to thrive in the new normal. Yeah, and that's the change. And you see this linkage. It's a thriving organization, it's your workforce, and it's the individual. Yeah, all of this is linked. So I will move this backwards. So if the individual feels that he's growing and he's also contributing, nobody likes to just take their pay home. Everybody likes to have a sense of contribution and achievement. If you enable that through the slide that we saw earlier, and you are empowered, you have empowered them, you have connected them to technology, they feel adequately protected, they feel psychologically protected, they are healthy, they are energized. And this translates into a diverse and adaptive workforce, which is more inclusive and growth focused, and committed to employee well-being. Also, thing that I would like to highlight here is today well-being is not just about financial security. It's about psychological and emotional security in these uncertain times. And leaders and organizations who have stepped up will reap benefits out of this. It's about physical security as well, because I think safety, occupational health and safety, all of these aspects are now coming up front. We have seen the number of accidents that are happening because chemical plants opened up. They did not adequately evaluate their safety, and they had gases and leakages and explosions. So all of it, physical safety, occupational health and safety, all of it becomes important from a workforce perspective. And with this, with a clearly defined, redefined vision, mission, goals, whatever, and if you're resilient and agile, that's and if end of the day, as I said, again, organizations who have a positive impact on the society, on ESG goals, are the ones that will thrive and in the period ahead. So very quickly, so we get asked very frequently, how do you put all of this together? I mean, it's all fine, it's theory. What are the models?
I'll just come in for a minute. How much long for this presentation? Because we really wanted to take up questions. So
Yeah,
yes,
another 2-3 minutes. That's it.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Yes.
So yeah. So also, it's nice to talk about all of this, but is it only theory, and how do you make it come together? Yeah. So this is the kind of model that we offer to our clients, where you can see that clearly we are able to address the components of whatever we discussed. Yeah. So whether it is payroll and compliance, whether it is the whole design and reinventing the current new normal, what should be the adapted compensation strategy, employee lifecycle management, and link it to performance management. We spoke about technology, and I have a couple of slides where I just want to give a glimpse of what's possible. So this is not as promotion. This is in terms of, because people need to understand what are the possibilities, what can be done today. So, for example, if you have a HRMS which is digitally driven, this is one example of a screen where you can have a complete analysis of an employee's leave record, what are the type of leaves, what is done, when is he planning his leave. You can correlate that to who else in the team is on leave, and then it can be sanctioned. Yeah, these are just a couple of screenshots. I also spoke about live performance management. Yeah, so
sir, if you could maybe magnify these slides a little bit.
Let me try.
Yes, if you could zoom the slides, maybe. Yes, so that I hope this is helping the audience. Yes, 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 much better.
So look at this. So you have your attendance and your leave right here. You can look at, this is what I was speaking about earlier in terms of performance management. Here exactly you can see what is your level of performance and how you're performing vis-a-vis the previous period, what is the possible incentive that you can earn. Everything is live, open, transparent. Yeah. And on this side as well, because I can't see it clearly right now because it's zoomed out. Okay, but that's again, this is just for your information that these are the possibilities if you are willing to explore technology. Yeah. I think towards the end, I would like to sum it up with these words of Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, because in fact I have put this poem up because I started thinking in terms of where the mind is without fear, and then I said, this is not my own, this is from somewhere, and then I searched for that on the net, and then I found this poem. So I would like to sum up by going through it, because he had written this for us as a nation during our freedom struggle, but I think it's extremely relevant to any organization if we interpret that in the organization context. So where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, when knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, in this case maybe silos in the organization, where words come out from the depths of truth, that's about your values, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, that's about excellence, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, so we don't work by habit, we work with a purpose, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father. Let my country awake, let my organization awake. Yeah, so, thank you.
Yes. Wonderful presentation. So wonderful. I think they have almost both Mr. Chawla and Mr. Kode have touched upon all the issues, answered a lot of questions. So before I open it to all of you, I think all of you have really enjoyed this discussion and we are now eager to hear from you. So very important. One thing that I think is established for all of us, that employees are an important stakeholder in our businesses today. We have to acknowledge this and then only we will approach it in the right way. And let's focus for the next part of this remaining time, half an hour, on getting a lot of our perspective and principles and beliefs right. Because when it comes to nitty-gritties of doing this, we really have experts. Already we have met two today who can really help us steer and who can help the implementation in our organization. But before that, it is about a mindset. It is about identifying the need. It is really about reaching out and hiring the right kind of professional expertise. But that will only happen when you and I see the need. So now let's open up the questions. A lot of questions have already come. So we can take maybe, one question at a time, and anybody who wants to, just come, unmute, introduce yourself and quickly ask your question. So Shweta here has a question. How do you manage freelancers, remotely working employees? So this is a larger question. I think she means to say here that now today in the new norm, when remote working gives you a lot of operational efficiency also, but how do you really manage it? So open to both of you, anybody could take it. Mr. Chawla, would you want to take it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Shweta, good question. In fact, this is the order of the day. As you go forward, this is going to be more and more important for the organization. So I would probably use terms like hot bodies and warm bodies. Hot bodies meaning the ones that are your regular employees. Warm bodies are the ones that you have referred to as freelancers, or maybe they are a part of the community or gig workers. Call them whatever you want to. The fact of the matter is the speed at which changes are happening, organizations would not be able to, or would not really have the deep pockets to train and reskill and upskill their people. What that means is, largely as we go forward, we're going to be having project teams as we see in organizations, right? And what that means is you would have freelancers and gig workers also being a part of some of these projects, where they would have clear deliverables assigned to them as a part of the work that they're bringing on, or the value that they're bringing onto the table. So I think that's the only way where you have clarity in terms of the work that you're going to be getting done through this gig worker economy, having a complete understanding of how does the compensation or how does the reward mechanism look like for them. So being transparent about not just rewarding and compensation, but also about the work that needs to be done by them in congruence with the regular members of the team of the organization itself. I hope I've answered your question, Shweta.
Yes, Shweta. So this is another Shweta from the participants. So is your question answered? Anything else that you would want to add on to? And Shweta, can you hear us? So I think we'll go to the first question. There was a question from Mr. Vimal Savansukha, and I think Mr. Govind Gupta, all have been trying to ask the important question aspect they all want to address is about the hiring. So a lot of us see hiring as a challenge, comes to the entire hiring process, and then a subset of that is also the right interview process. So how do we get a hiring right? What are the best ways to interview, and how to assess people in just flat 20-25 minutes of an interview put together? I'm putting the larger question to both of
I think
yes.
Yeah. So I think somebody put up that question there. So how do you assess somebody in 20-25 minutes? And my personal experience is, you have to go to the beginning. And I think the problem lies not with the person being interviewed, but it lies with the person who is interviewed. And in most cases, we find that we need to train the person who's interviewing skill set. They need to be given a framework as well around which, because every position will require a different framework. What you will, the way you will assess somebody at a leadership level and the way you will assess somebody at a mid-management level or at an interview is completely different. However, what we have all witnessed through the years is, people literally get up from what they are doing, go into the room and start and behaving whatever way it strikes them. So how many interviews are conducted professionally? Yeah. So this has to be completely structured. And some of us who have worked with larger multinational organizations have seen the benefit of it, because we are trained in terms of our interview skills. We know the do's and don'ts. We know what's possible, and it's also very, intercultural. For example, in India, the first thing we want to know is tell us about your family. Yeah.
Right.
We assess people based on their family and their background. You do that somewhere sitting in Europe, you will be in serious trouble. Yeah. So we need to get all these things right. There has to be a framework around which how you will assess and rate the candidate at the end of it, so that it's more professional. It's not how an individual is feeling on that particular day, whether his previous meeting was good or not, could also translate into how he behaves with the next candidate. And you've seen this.
Yes. Anything that you want to add, Mr. Chawla, here?
Yeah, I'll just add to what Kaustubh said. So I think great points by Kaustubh. Now, typically what happens is something I alluded to it when I was speaking earlier, that as the organization starts growing, it becomes extremely difficult for the owners and the promoters to be a part of the interviewing process on their own. And that's where I think the dilution starts happening. So as Kaustubh mentioned, unless the time we have proper frameworks available, meaning uh, a question set for maybe each of the positions being brought into the organization, a complete clarity on what are the positions and the roles that are being brought into the organization. So maybe spending time on preparing a formal job description, which enables whosoever is the hiring manager can have a complete clarity on who's being brought into. And not just hiring for the person for his immediate skills, but also be able to judge the capability of the person. Again, it's not easy. When I say it seems very easy, but again, it's a combination of both art and science as far as interviewing skills are concerned. But looking at what the person is going to bring on the table for today, the current requirement, and can this person also, or is he or she also showing promises from a future perspective as well? So I think it's got to be a combination of both, because you're not just hiring somebody for catering to your current customers, and the frantic pace at which the customer needs and the asks are changing. You need to be able to hire a person who is flexible enough to be able to maybe pick up skills on the run and be able to execute on the needs of the future customers as well, maybe over a period of time. So it's got to be a combination of both, because if you just hire a person for the skills today, I don't think it's really setting up yourself for success. And the second quick point over here is try and split up your hiring committee versus the committee that is responsible for interviewing. So it should not be the same set of people who are hiring and interviewing. So maybe you could have people who are doing the initial level of hiring, who then bubble up the candidate at a certain level where you have a panel of interviewers. And these panel of interviewers are then equipped to take care of any biases that come in. I think that's extremely important, though at times people take this as a time-taking exercise where instead of one person, maybe two or three people are sitting in the panel. But there is a reason why there are people sitting in a panel. It always takes care of the biases, individual biases that otherwise may creep in any of these interviewing whatever opportunities. I think that's
in fact, I wanted to, exactly take a point what you said, but a different challenge. What usually the SMEs and the mid-sized businesses, because they may not have a panel, they may not have the committee. One person or two people or three people are running the organization at the top level, so it becomes very difficult. And I think IMC. I mean. I remember we had around last year a session on the platform of IMC in Navi Mumbai by a person, Neha Malhotra. She had done a session for people to conduct interviews. How do you create JDs? So for the entrepreneurs and the small mid-sized businesses, we really need to strengthen them all those skills. that you don't need a lot of people, but how you effectively can create the, your JDs and do those right interviews, as Kaustubh and Harmeet mentioned. So, and I've also seen some,
Queries
feedbacks in
for
the chat box.
IMC.
Yeah.
IMC.
So
that
IMC,
can be.
surely, we have, we want this association or, this platform to expand in such a fashion that we create that complete ecosystem for the startups, for the SMEs, MSMEs in Navi Mumbai, and help them with all those expertise. So here, as IMC co-chairperson of Navi Mumbai, I invite, people like Harmeet, people like Kaustubh, to come on the panel as mentors, give your,
Yes.
inputs to the businesses who are there. And also I would, invite all the participants here to come to IMC. We have a wonderful conference room wherein, we can have these kind of interactions. And most importantly, once you are member on the platform of IMC, definitely there have been lots and lots of, webinars, free sessions of these sorts are happening for the benefit of members. So please do
Okay.
join the.
So
Yeah.
Divya, I think yes, there is. So just coming back to the topic,
Yeah.
there is somebody asking about certification process. We can please take it one-to-one. This is not a session to address that. Mr. George Peter, Nitin, please make sure that you get in touch with him and address his questions. But let's stick to our topic. So, okay, coming back to the topic, Mr. Vimal Samansukha writes here that today also, I think both our experts spoke about technology, and all of us know. I remember in an earlier session on technology and innovation, when I said technology is an enabler, he corrected me, Mr. Swaminathan, saying that no, it's a heart and soul. It's the engine of your business. It's no more an enabler in the 21st century. So today, when we are talking about people systems, monitoring your people, technology plays a very important role. And so what your views on this, when MSME owners or startups feel that technology requires a lot of money? We have been talking about this a lot. How can we go spending incrementally using technology? How can we go about it? But I would want our experts to share their view. When there is a serious budget constraint, how do you adopt technology? Is at all budget a constraint? I personally feel it is not in adopting technology, but yes, your views.
Shweta, it's a question of two things, if I may put it that way.
Mr. Chawla or Mr. Korde, anybody wants to go first?
Yeah, it's fine, Harmeet. Please go.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
We can.
All right. Yeah, sorry. I was just saying it's a combination of two things. One is three things, in fact, as I can think of it. One is the mindset, where again, traditional companies would perhaps still be shy of using technology to the extent technology can be seen as an enabler, because maybe they are so used to their manual way of working that technology is always seen as maybe a big expense for the organization. So that's where the mindset comes into picture. The other part is most of the organizations also are either ushering in technology or are being ushered into technology by consultants, because obviously the consultants want to make a killing out of it. But the fact of the matter is organizations need to understand, are they prepared for bringing in technology? And by that, what I mean is you need to have sort of a foundation being put in place. And that's where I think you would have heard me and Kaustubh both speaking from time to time about having a process framework, having a HR framework, so on and so forth. So once you have these processes in place, it becomes easy for you to then bring these manual processes onto the technology medium. So digitize them essentially to begin with.
Exactly.
Right. So we could probably we could come up with several examples, things like managing the regular employee data on an ongoing basis. Right. So that is something which can be brought onto the technology medium. It's about enabling their payroll. It could be a touchless payroll, absolutely, where no manual intervention is required at all. It could be the way performance management system is happening for employees. Again, completely touchless. You don't need to touch your Microsoft Excel or a document or anything. So as I said, the examples are many. And the beauty of using this technology is that you could either, if you have the inclination, you could go for an end-to-end enterprise-wise solution, integrating all the processes in the employee life cycle, right from the time you hire the employee to the time the employee retires. So everything can become as a part of the enterprise-wide technology-led solution. Or you could also have standalone solutions. So again, depending on your immediate need and ask and requirement, it could also be done in stages for organizations. So maybe you invest in some little part, get it digitized, and it falls in line with your future requirement as well. Gradually do this, and once you start getting savings accrued from the initial bit of the technology intervention that you have brought in, that becomes a self-sustaining model for you, where it does not really get seen as a cost being sunk into your initiative, but the initiative itself starts funding you for what you wanted to do as a part of your vision. So I think I'll just stop here. Kaustubh, you may want to just add to something.
No, so very well explained, Harmeet, and in fact, Shweta, you also mentioned this. So I think if you do not start seeing technology as being central to what you are doing and see it as a standalone thing, yeah, just as you mentioned at the beginning of the session that you have 28 participants because people still have the mindset that this is something for somebody else to manage.
Exactly.
Realizing
Exactly. Very true.
everything that the organization is about its people, right? So, so your people, your technology have to come center stage, yeah. And it's a process. Technology implementation doesn't happen overnight. As Harmeet explained, you can start piecemeal, let it pay for itself, but it's very important to set the house in order before you do that. Yeah. So even going back to the previous question, so again, Harmeet made a very important point. So if you're hiring someone, if you don't have a proper job description, yeah, that's where you will make a mess. You may end up with the wrong candidate or not pick the best, let's say, if you don't know exactly what you want out of that position. And if you, and today there are also solution implementers in the market who simply come in and say, we have technology in 2 months, we are done, we will implement if you're willing to pay, and they are out. But what do? They're basically not setting the house in order. So it's garbage in, garbage out. So this means that you're still living with the same set of problems and limitations that you had. You must first clean the house, set the basics in place, lay that foundation, and then you should build your technology.
Yes, yes, yes. So any other questions? I think we've taken up most of the questions in the chat window. Anybody wants to, we have the last 10 minutes remaining with us. So wonderful opportunity. I think we have addressed most of the aspects, Achha, there's a new question. So we would want to, okay.
I have a question,
Okay.
Harmeet. You touched upon a very important aspect of the succession planning. And the this one, yeah, sorry. So and the bringing second level of the leadership into the organization and how you build it. So I would like to know more about that. How because I have seen businesses which have been in existence for 20 years, 25 years, and they don't have a succession plan. I mean, I was talking to Nilesh Bhai Vikamsi, who's been the past president of CA Institute, and he said there are probably more than 70-80% of the Indian businesses don't have succession plans, and maybe more than that. So what all, because, when we are talking here of the startups, small businesses, so how important it is for them to create that succession plan when bigger organizations even don't have it? And what all small basic 3 or 4 things they should take care of when they are making their succession plan at the basic nascent level, because it doesn't mean that succession plan बहुत बड़े होने के बाद ही करना है. Anything can happen to anyone at any moment. So how you really build that succession plan at a very nascent stage? I want to know your thoughts on that.
It's a small question, but a very deep question.
Very
Thanks
deep question, yes.
All right, I'll try and answer this to the best of my ability. Divya, once again, succession planning largely is a means to the end, if I may put it that way. There are several things that need to be enabled upfront. And I realize the sector that we are speaking about, having worked with really some big organizations and multinationals, where probably having succession planning and all of this that we have been speaking about in the last hour and a half or so, for them it's an order of the day. But for smaller organizations where perhaps managing the business itself is the biggest challenge for them, they can't even think about succession planning. So I think to answer your question, bringing in elements of performance management to begin with, which itself, as I said, it's easy for me to just utter a word and say, hey, organizations, you should start managing performance management, or bring in performance management for managing the performance of your people. It's easier said than done. But I think that's where organizations, instead of using ad hoc measures to measure the performance of their people, at least try, because most organizations, big or small, would have some vision or objective or a strategy of the owner. So as long as you have some means of translating that objective into regular KPIs or goals for the respective employees, the first step towards performance management is start measuring them across those KPIs and goals at every level, and understand at every level who are the people essentially whom you require for managing critical functions. And that's where, depending on the constant feedback that you're getting from the performance management system, you start getting data points to get a sense of who are the people who are performing and who are the people who have the right potential. So then that data points helps you understand, how do I now start grooming this person for this particular critical role, given that you have some data points to understand that, there is some background to this person's performance that you have in terms of both performance and potential. And then you slowly start grooming the person for the critical roles. And that essentially is the backbone of any succession planning in any organization. So as I said, it was a loaded question where a couple of things need to be enabled. But once you get it started with maybe a formal performance management system, etc., in place, it becomes easy for you to manage this on an ongoing basis.
I think very
Is that
valid point. Thank you so much for
Did that
these
answer?
insights.
So, Mr. Kote, instead of answering this question, maybe a last aspect that I feel we have not touched upon today, or maybe very little bit. So we understand, finally putting a structure, getting in a technology in your business, everything, getting the right people. We need to be very clear on what we need to do. And there is where everything starts, because you have right partners, people who can really get right products and services in the market. But to make the right choice, we have to first enable ourselves. There the journey starts. So now talking about this, how important it is for small organizations, startups, to invest in training and enabling their own people. And how training is a continuous process. It's both the technical training that a lot of manufacturing and other services companies have to do, that maybe a lot of organizations do. But what about the other aspects of training? That is something I think training is as an area is very, very important. So both your views, maybe Mr. Korde, you can start with it.
Yeah.
So
Shweta, I tend to look at everything from a strategic point of view. So what is it that you wish to achieve? So I mean, we don't need to do any training for the sake of training, right? So what are the goals that we wish to achieve out of that training? So whatever you do has to be linked to your organization, objectives and priority. So you may have a lot of objectives, but you need to prioritize what you do. Those resources are limited, right? So for a small organization, the immediate skills related to the job, that's the highest priority.
Right.
And then in your prioritization matrix, then you start bringing in soft skills as you start growing.
Right.
So what will that training enable? And what is the competency you're looking to get out of it? What is the outcome that you're looking to get out of it? So you should first be very clear about what is the outcome, and then your plan should be made accordingly, and how you will measure that outcome, because there's another huge area, training effectiveness. Yeah. So first be clear what's the outcome you expect, how you will measure it, and then go.
Right. So any last questions from our participants, because I think we'll close in the next 3-4 minutes. Yes.
I'll just probably want to bring in one thing, Shweta.
Yes. Yes. Please, sir, go ahead.
Uh, I think we have rather harped enough on the need for equipping people, any size, any shape of the organization, important. But I think what really makes these organizations is the fact that there's something called managing your daily habits every day.
True.
And if organizations, again, irrespective of the shape and size, bring in some measurements, as Kaustubh said, measurement becomes extremely important. So as long as people have a clarity on how their performance is being measured, what is their daily accountability, and somebody holds them accountable for what they are doing on a day-to-day basis. And how does their day-to-day activity tie up rather with the accountability that they have been provided with? So if these measures are consciously being brought in as a part of their day-to-day existence, I think that's where the wonders start really happening. We all talk of growth, we all talk about big ticket items, but at times, as I said, we seldom miss the wood for the trees, as I love to say. So we miss out on these subtle points, which actually constitute, if done effectively every day, that's what constitutes the transformation and the big results that we are speaking about over here. So I think for these organizations that we are speaking about, it's important you start in a small way. We're not asking or urging you to really go the big bang theory, but at least get small, get started by pushing for these daily measurements and the daily performance accountabilities assigned to the people, and also help them see the big picture. I think one very important point in most organizations is the fact where I am just doing one part of my job, as opposed to the past where, if I have to just bring an example of a cobbler, in the past, a cobbler would only be responsible for, or rather, would be responsible for taking the order and also executing it end to end. Unlike a situation now where if I'm creating a certain product or a service in the organization, I would only be doing my bit without the visibility of how does my activity on a day-to-day basis add up to the entire value chain in the organization. So I think this is one point that I just want to leave you with. No matter what you do, make sure you are creating this visibility for everybody to understand how their contribution, no matter what they are doing on a day-to-day basis, is adding up to the larger picture of the organization. That's what is going to enthuse the people to come and be able to give their best, because they understand it's not just what they are doing on the day-to-day basis, but the larger part that gets added up. I think that's what would keep them excited and engaged. So it's not just about saying I am building a monument and I'm just breaking the stone, but saying, oh, I am breaking the stone because eventually it's going to be adding up to the monument that is getting built. I think this picture is extremely important. And the moment you also bring in the level of measurements and tracking and accountability, etc., I think this is what is going to be miraculous for your organization. So I just wanted to leave you with some of these thoughts. Hope
No, wonderful. I think very, very insightful, very important. Mr. Khode, your last words, and then we could end this session. I think hope everybody is making a note, so many important aspects have been covered in this 1.5 hour. Just think about it, go and implement it, and you will see magic happen in your organization, a lot of transformational changes. Yes.
I think last few things that I would like to say, and I think Harmeet, that is a beautiful example, yeah, where you're not just carving a stone, but you're contributing to the whole edifice. So I think it's important as owners that we focus on building our organizational DNA, yeah, because everything that we do, it's our culture, what we demonstrate, it's the values that you demonstrate, it's the behaviors that you demonstrate, which will, and in every situation, in a consistent manner, if you're able to demonstrate that, that's where you will have your organizational DNA. Rest, everything that we do will move around that central core. Yeah. So please make it a point to build that as strong as you can, because if your core DNA is strong, your organization will survive and thrive. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you. I think PPT, yes, we will check with both our experts if they are okay, because sometimes it's proprietary material also. So we'll just check with that. If they are okay, Nitin will definitely share it with all of you who have registered with us. We'll definitely do that. We have been doing it always. So we would like to end our session. And it has been wonderful, but very small thing. I think all of us have learned today from both of them. The final comment that we need to communicate with our teams, with our people, our vision, mission, absolute clarity of purpose, why, what, and how we will do it. And we will see changes happening, and then that is from where we can build. So summing up the session, thank you so much, both our experts. It has been wonderful. I wish we had more time because there were so many aspects. I'm sure I had so many questions. I'm sure Divya had, and a lot of our participants had. But this is our
In
format.
fact, yeah, absolutely wonderful interactive session, Harmeet and Kaustubh. Thank you for being here. And as IMC, I would like to say one thing. The way Kaustubh and Harmeet has mentioned that communication is very important. Even at IMC level, communication is important. You as participants, keep communicating, keep sharing the word of this and wonderful initiative what IMC has been doing to your friends, your families. Communicate more out so that we have more and more people joining in these kind of initiatives what IMC has been taking. At the same time, communicate with IMC, reach out for challenges what you have, so that we are motivated and energized to create more and more such kind of wonderful initiatives and events for you all. So that's it from my end. Thank you everyone. And
Yes,
yeah.
yes, thank you. And we will also share the contact details of the respective organization, both are experts. So if you want to reach out to them and you want to really consult them on your organization matters, feel free to do so. So thank you all of you. Next Wednesday is the last session on leadership. That is for all of us, because we all have to lead from the front. Otherwise, we cannot really achieve what we want. Very important, and that is where everything starts. Everything flows, comes from, it's a top-down approach. Because
I tell you, I keep telling everyone, there is a Chinese proverb: the fish rots at its head.
Yes.
And that's where nurturing and cultivating the top leadership is very, very important. So
yes,
next session is going to be really exciting and important. Don't miss out on that. So look forward for more and more participation, and one person here can surely tag 2 or 3 people more.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
Hey,
so
Divya,
much. Wonderful.
Divya, what was the proverb you just shared? The Chinese proverb?
The fish rots at its head.
Okay.
Whether the organization succeeds or crumbles, it depends on the head of the organization.
Okay.
So let's take, be responsible and accountable, Great. Look forward to meeting you all again next Wednesday. Have a wonderful working week. We are midweek, and just go back and do change. Change is the only constant. Let's all change for the better. And thank you so much, both of you. It was wonderful having both of you.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful and a learning for us as well. And thank you all the participants for the wonderful questions.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, sir. Nitin, thank you. And
Thank
for
you.
helping us host this.
Thank you.
Please, you can close the session now.
Yeah.